What's up, guys? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. If you're new around here, my name's Matt. We are currently out here at my farm today, or what's gonna be my farm. I always call it my farm, but it's actually just a piece of land right now, but it was my grandma's farm. So anyway, backstory. We are standing almost at the end of my super long driveway here. I'm gonna have to remeasure when we're done, but it's probably gonna end up being a little over a quarter mile from the road to my shipping container shop just over here. But as some of you guys know, it's been quite a while since I've worked on the driveway. I just kind of clear and do sections of it at a time when I have the time and finances to do so. But I want to get started on finishing it today, or at least finished for a good while. This road needs to continue down. I don't know if you guys can see, there's some X's on some trees down there. Those trees gotta go. We can make a straight shot down there. Right at the end of this is where I want to build my house someday, and then it's gonna bear to the right down here, run along this ridge, and run in front of the shipping container shop over here. And that way I will have nice rock to drive on rather than a mud hole, because I'd like to work on things in the shipping container shop. But it's a pretty good little walk to get from my truck clear over to the shop, you know, especially when you're carrying tools and everything back and forth, and it gets pretty muddy through there. So it'd be a heck of a lot easier, and I would definitely be a little more encouraged to come out here and work on stuff if I could just drive all the way right up to the building. Call me lazy, but that's the thing. But anyway, the fact is, it's a nice day today. It's a little chilly, but we're gonna get the excavator fired up. We're gonna take out those trees and start prepping to get the rest of this driveway put down. Let's go. Been several weeks since the old Komatsu's been fired up. It's in the low 20s today. It's pretty chilly, and this thing doesn't have any functioning grid heater or glow plugs. So, yep, hopefully we can get her started. So close. All right, well, the old girl doesn't want to start on her own. A company sent me this jump start pack the other day. Well, not the other day, heck, I've had it for a couple months now. I've only used it one time on like a little lawn tractor, and it worked there. So we'll see what it does for something like this. This is probably a bit more than it's really made for, but I've always been skeptical of these things. I really don't see how it's supposed to work with such little cables and stuff, you know. But there's people that understand pixie wrangling a lot better than I do that could explain it, because I know that some of them are pretty nice. I will give them, these guys, even without saying if it works or not, the cable clamps on here are a lot better than I would have expected. They looked like, you know, they didn't look like they would be that great, but they actually feel really good in the hand. Got a little green light, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit the key, see what happens. Contact. Well, that seemed like it worked pretty good. I don't think this thing really needed much more extra oomph to get that little bit to fire. You know, if the battery was a lot lower than it was, I don't know that this would have done it, but it did do it. You know, if you had just left your headlights on in the parking lot or something, probably work. You know, it fits in your glove box. It is pretty handy. So, yeah. Anyway. Thing seems decent. You know, I've seen some really chintzy ones that I didn't really like the looks of, but I don't know. I've been using it as a power pack a lot for charging up my camera gear and other stuff while I'm out here in the woods. It's got some USB ports on it too, so you can use it as a power bank. Links in the description if you're interested. All right, let's go knock some trees over. Alright, so I got my dirty old hoe up here ready to start yanking some of these trees out. Now, see, like that little cherry right here, it's a fairly small tree. I should be able to manage to just shove that straight back that way into that clearing. Cherries are pretty easy to get out. The roots aren't really that deep. Now, I'm not gonna touch it, but say this elm tree right here, that's about the same size as that cherry, I'd have to dig a big old pit around that thing before this machine would be able to push it over. Elm trees are rooted in really good. Luckily, I don't have too many of those out here. The next, we're gonna be taking down that silver maple. As much as I hate to, I'm gonna save that one. That looks like a good tree to throw at the sawmill if I ever get one, or pay the neighbor to saw up. A couple little scraggly ones down through here, and then we got a big dead cherry down at the end there, and some other little ones, but we'll get that when we get there. So even that little cherry there, I probably can't just shove it straight over. I mean, I probably will try, but what I usually end up doing is just popping the roots from both left and right sides of the tree, and then shoving it straight back with the bucket. The nice thing about an excavator versus pushing trees over the bulldozer, you know, a bulldozer, the blade only goes up so high, you don't have that much leverage. But the excavator, you can take the bucket and put it way up top there and use the whole tree as your lever and shove it right over. So always like to get the stumps out, that way you don't have to worry about them rotting down the line and causing issues. So well, let's get going. Okay, this next silver maple here is quite a bit bigger. It's probably about a 24-inch tree at least down at the bottom there. Same principle applies, just dig around it. But you know, when you get these big boys, you got to kind of pay attention. You're not undermining it too far, and it could actually come over on you while you're still trying to dig it out. So just gonna keep checking it and keep your eyes on it. she was a big girl. Here's a little size comparison for you. I'm 6'2". I got an 8-foot reach. A little over 9 foot of tree stump here, or at least 9 foot of root ball, not a tree stump. All right, now that we got this big old tree on the ground, the first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna take the hose, start scratching all the dirt off of that root ball because we're gonna need to fill that hole in. And I'll also be throwing out all this little root junk that's laying down in here because you really don't want to backfill with that kind of material. It'll still rot and sink like there was a stump there. Not as bad, obviously, but you know. Once I get as much dirt off of that as I can, I'll grab the chainsaw, whack that stump off so I can manage it because this excavator can't pick up that whole tree plus that root ball. So I'll have to chop that off so I can get it out of the way and backfill the hole, track it in real good, and move on to the next tree. All right, that was a textbook example of how hard these elm trees are to get out, but it's also a really good illustration of why they are so hard to get out. This is maybe, so a 6-inch tree. But look at the root system that this thing had on it. It was, so there's the dirt line right about there. It had all this big stub sticking down in the ground, and all these little tap roots anchoring downward and outward really make these things a bear to get out. This big silver maple we just took down, though the root ball was really wide, it really wasn't that deep. That root ball probably not even quite as thick as this little teeny root was. That's why I hate digging out elms. We're gonna attack this little patch here next. I got 3 scraggly little trees here behind me. A couple maples, and I don't even know what that third one is. But this big dead cherry, that one's gonna wait till last, because if you watch the driveway series, that is my target tree. And until I have this straight stretch completely done up to this tree, I'm gonna leave that so I got something to aim at when I'm scraping and laying my fabric and putting my rock down on the driveway. Here's the dilemma I'm facing now, guys. As you can see, the driveway comes all the way down here nice and straight, and we're standing just off to the side of it. That tree there is the center line for the whole thing. That should be the end of the straight section, and it should start to turn right at that tree. I'm gonna start breaking it over towards the excavator there, and my house is gonna be just basically on the other side of the excavator eventually. Now there's this beautiful big oak tree right here that I would love to be able to keep, and I kind of thought about making a roundabout around that tree, you know, removing a couple of these over here, making a roundabout, and that way when I come in here with big trailers and stuff, I could actually just cut to the right of that tree and not have to worry about swinging and catching that thing, you know, because if you're coming out this way and trying to swing around it, it would be difficult with a long trailer. The other part of me thought maybe just stop the driveway just short of this tree a little bit and then break it and bend it right before this big oak tree. But then you end up taking out several of these cherries over here, so I'm not really sure. 6 of one, half dozen the other. I'm a big tree hugger, I guess you could say, as close to a construction worker tree hugger as there is. I like to save all these trees. I don't want to cut any more than I have to make my driveway nice, you know. I mean, I could have weaved it through all the trees, but that would have been a nightmare to maintain, cost a lot more in stone and everything. A straight shot should require the least amount of clearing and rock, so that's why I did what I did here. Also, I really like the idea that I can sit on the front of my house and I should be able to see all the way down this driveway. So I got my route planned finally. I decided on that. So we got maybe 3, maybe 4 trees to take down. We'll get those knocked down, and then I'll start cleaning up all the tops, cutting off the stumps and getting rid of everything, and then maybe we can break out the bulldozer and start cutting the topsoil off. All right, so if you haven't been able to tell in this video, I'm kind of going a little more in-depth than normal, kind of trying to explain my thought process on what I'm doing here. So I was just getting ready to take this tree out, and I was going to bring it this direction towards the camera, and I started looking at it. That right there with the Y at the top, that's the dead tree that is my target tree at the end of the driveway. Now that tree is super dead, super brittle, and the top on it is leaning both directions, so there's really no safe direction to push it from without the risk of something coming back and hitting the machine, or if I cut it down with a saw, you know, the same thing applies. It's almost a little safer to do it with a saw because there's no big jars to the tree before it's already falling. But what I think I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use this tree and then send it that direction and try and bust off that top over here with it, and that way I'll have a safe side to try to push from, or at least a little more safe. So yeah, hopefully we'll get two birds stoned at once here. Well, that didn't work. In fact, it was nearly a really close call again with another tree top. Pushing trees over in the wintertime is a little more dangerous than in the summertime because it's harder to tell if a tree's really alive or dead. That one I pushed over just now, I could tell it had a couple bad spots in it, but it really looked like it was still an alive tree. It didn't really look like it was dead. And it very little resistance against this other tree and immediately broke in half and came back, nearly missed the machine. I mean, I just kind of eyeballed as it came down, hoping I could swing, you know, enough to get it out of the way. Luckily, nothing happened to the machine. Everything's good. Let's check it out. So there you go. You can see how rotten and hollow that log was, and it really didn't look that bad from the ground down here. It looked, you know, maybe not healthy, but it wasn't rotten from the ground. It was definitely still alive. I can see there's green on some of these smaller limbs. But it wasn't long for the world, I can tell you that. And this side is the limb that busted off and nearly hit the machine here. It was pretty close. One of those things that makes you pucker for a second, but not too bad. All right, let's get this root ball cleaned up and get this whole mess out of here. Okay, I got our route laid out for the road here. I pulled a string line off this tree that I don't want to remove. I don't know if you guys can see the string real well. So that's our target tree at the end of the long stretch of the driveway. So you're going to come down this way and you'll go right through that tree eventually to go straight to the house. But what we're going to work on first is come right up to that tree and swing right down through here and then run along this route straight that way. I ran this string line straight to where the left side of the garage door will be on the big shop when I build it. This way I'm not laying a road down that is indirect, in which way I would be wasting gravel and time essentially. So I should be able to just strip this topsoil off of here and start laying some stone. All right, we're going to use my bulldozer to strip the topsoil off. It has been a while since I've used this thing. We'll make sure we check the fluids and everything. I've been avoiding using it because the hydraulic cylinders, a couple of them up front here, need to be rebuilt. They leak a little bit of oil, but not too bad. We can still use it. Make quick work of that driveway. All right, the fluids look good. We'll go ahead and get this thing fired up, and then I'm just going to back it outside and let it warm up while I give it a good greasing. This is the spot I left off stripping topsoil and putting down rock and fabric in the summertime. I've explained in previous videos, this isn't just plastic. I know a lot of you guys that aren't in the industry think that I'm just putting plastic sheeting down. This is not the same stuff you put underneath your garden to keep the weeds from coming. This is purpose-made road fabric called soil stabilization fabric or geofabric. Basically what it does is keeps the mud from coming up through into your stone and contaminating your stone. Anyways, the weather keeps threatening to ruin the party here. I don't want to get too much opened up because it could be a little while before I'm able to actually put the rock on this. So I'm going to go ahead and strip the topsoil all the way up to the target tree and then call that good. It doesn't take very long to do this with the dozer, so let's get to it. All right, got the topsoil all stripped off. I ended up having to cut a little bit of clay out over here. I didn't realize there was kind of a little bit of a hump in here. So I took most of that out. It's actually pretty darn hard. And we also, I'm probably just making excuses at this point, but we're just coming out of a good freeze period here. And parts of the ground seem to be frozen still and parts of the ground are thawed. So I was cutting along through here and there was places that all of a sudden the blade would just start riding up over top of the ground rather than cutting it, and then all of a sudden you'd start diving and getting sucked in. So took a few passes over it in a few different directions trying to keep her smoothed out. It's not a perfect plane, but it's not a washboard either. So good enough for a farm road. You know, if we were building a superhighway, it'd be a little different. So like I said, guys, it might take me, you know, several days or even a week or so before I can actually get the time and the weather to cooperate for me to lay out the rest of my fabric and get my rock down to about here. And then we're gonna make the turn and start swooping over towards the shipping container shop. So I don't want to strip out all that topsoil over there and make a, you know, once you strip the topsoil off, if it gets wet, it becomes a mud hole, and you'll be using more rock than you need to. So I'm going to leave that topsoil on there for now, and in the next video we're going to be putting our fabric down, we're going to be dumping rock, we're going to be spreading rock, and hopefully at the same time stripping the rest of this topsoil off and getting all that rock put on there. I think about 2 good days of hauling I should be able to get the whole thing rocked over to the building. It's a pretty good little ways. So anyways, guys, that's the end of this video. I'm about out of time for today. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the old thumbs up button. It really helps the channel out. And if you like heavy equipment and playing in the dirt, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so I can see you on the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.